Hello and welcome back to Man vs Film. We're into November already and it's time for me to lay out 10 pretty good movies for you to check out this month. Still got a little bit of a horror hangover, but that's okay because there's always time for horror in my book, and I hope you enjoy or find something here that you really want to check out. Let's get started. Number 10, Game Night. Married competitive gamer couple Max and Annie are trying to have a child, but their attempts are unsuccessful due to Max's stress surrounding his feelings of inadequacy when compared to his successful, attractive brother Brooks. Brooks shows up Max by arriving in a Corvette Stingray, his dream car, and sharing an embarrassing story about him. Brooks offers to host the next game night, and in this one, all bets are off. I think Game Night is one of the best comedy movies in the past couple of years, with wonderful direction and storytelling. It has some inspired performances in this one. It has a good sense of what the cast can do and offers up some real chuckles, which is more than I can say for a lot of comedies these days. Number 9, Centurion. On the outskirts of the Roman Empire in 117 AD Scotland, the brave Centurion Quintus Dias heads north with his dauntless general Titus Verilius, hot in the trail of bloodthirsty Pict leader Gorlacon, and ordered to eradicate the ever-growing menace. Instead, they're all slaughtered, almost during an unexpected raid. Trapped and encircled by mighty warriors, a handful of survivors led by Quintus must now fight tooth and nail to return to the safety of the border. Another Neil Marshall cracker of a movie. This one is really fun, really well photographed, full of terrific action. It's got Michael Fassbender in an early role and is brutal. Really fun action thriller type of movie that seemed to have skated under the radar a little bit. Needs a little bit more promotion, and here it is. Go and hit play. Number 8, Prince Avalanche. In the wake of a devastating forest wildfire that swept through Texas in 1988, the thoughtful and disciplined Alvin and his polar opposite but well-meaning brother-in-law Lance are hired to repair the scorched roads. However, against the backdrop of a summertime solitude in a ravaged land, little by little the task of painting yellow traffic lines down the middle of a new country road will eventually lead to a piercing tension between the two workers. David Gordon Green directs, and this is a wonderful tale, rather simple in its actual story. You've got these two slightly related characters who are a little bit mismatched, camping out by night, working each day along miles of road, and just the tensions that arrive with the two of them doing it. It's incredibly fun. You've got Paul Rudd and Emile Hirsch giving wonderful performances, and this is a real sleeper kind of hit. I loved this when I first discovered it, and nobody seems to talk about it. Number 7, Rampage. Primatologist Davis shares an unshakable bond with George, the extraordinarily intelligent silverback gorilla who has been in his care since he was young. When a greed-fueled corporation's genetic experiment goes awry, George and other animals across the country are mutated into aggressive super creatures who destroy everything in their path. It's up to Davis to save George while trying to save humanity at the same time. Every now and then you need something a little bit silly, a little bit turn off the brain with just some cool CG and The Rock, and this fills that quota. It's never going to set the world alight. It's just fun throwaway entertainment. Just bear that in mind. Number 6, Colossal. Gloria is an out-of-work girl who, after getting kicked out of her apartment by her boyfriend, is forced to leave her life in New York and move back to her hometown. When news reports surface that a giant creature is destroying Seoul in South Korea, Gloria gradually comes to the realisation that this is somehow connected to this phenomenon. As events begin to spin out of control, Gloria must determine why her seemingly insignificant existence has such a colossal effect on the fate of the world. Nacho Vigalondo directs this one, and Anne Hathaway stars in this completely bonkers movie. Basically, whenever she walks through a sandpit, a certain area in a child's park, she appears as a giant monster in South Korea, destroying the locale. It's incredibly silly, but there's a lot of thoughtful stuff behind this. It's a woman dealing with a lot of trauma in her life, but it's just portrayed through this wonderful prism of a kaiju movie. I hope you're interested already. Number 5, Ready Player One. In the year 2045, on his deathbed, James Halliday, the creator of the wildly popular virtual reality utopia known as the Oasis, begins a hunt for his fortune and the ownership of the Oasis, with puzzles and riddles based on his obsession with pop culture of decades past. After years of searching for the first Easter egg, one average teenager named Wade Watts solves the first clue and sparks excitement and hope back into the hunt. I love the book by Ernest Cline on this one. Steven Spielberg directs the hell out of this, bringing that kind of fun and enthusiasm that he does to big blockbusters, and I've watched this a couple of times and it's just incredibly fun. Unlike Rampage, it's a summer blockbuster that has that ability to be rewatched, to offer new things, to create characters that you love in situations that are wonderful while being visually distinct as well. If you haven't seen it, you really should. Number 4, Hubie Halloween. Good-natured but eccentric community volunteer Hubie Dubois finds himself at the centre of a real murder case on Halloween night. Despite his devotion to his hometown of Salem, Massachusetts, and its legendary Halloween celebration, Hubie is a figure of mockery for kids and adults alike. Another Adam Sandler Netflix movie. This one is actually pretty funny. I don't know if it's my affinity to horror movies, the fact that I like this kind of performance from Sandler, or the fact that it's bringing back all his kind of family of cast. Everybody's here. It's tremendously fun. I think the Flask is ridiculous yet somehow highly entertaining, and it's a movie I've watched a couple of times during Halloween already. I know that time has passed, but it's still a fun movie to throw on. Number 3, Vampires versus the Bronx. A group of friends band together to save their neighbourhood from gentrification in the form of vampires looking to set up home in a place where no one bothers when someone just disappears. A fun, simple movie. Doesn't really do anything outstanding, but just skates by having these wonderful trio of main characters who you actually get invested in. And even though there is no real weight behind the terror of what's going to happen to them, it creates a kind of fun movie that has some interesting set pieces and is something that had a smile on my face while watching. Number 2, Assassination Nation. High school senior Lily and her 3 best friends live in a haze of texts, posts, selfies and chats, just like the rest of the world. Their small town gets turned upside down when an anonymous hacker starts to reveal personal messages and secrets of thousands of people. As anger erupts into full-blown violence, the 4 girls soon find themselves in a fight for their lives against an armed mob. Assassination Nation is utterly wonderful. Only narrowly missed out my number 1 spot. Even now, I'm going to make it a joint number 1. It's just such a fantastic movie. You know, half of this small town has their personal text messages leaked and everybody can see their dirty secrets, and it erupts in some really unsettling, violent sequences, and seeing people's id as they discover what other people think of them. It has some great social messages in amongst it. I think it's really pertinent now. It's one that didn't get a lot of really great cinema time, kind of faded away into the shadows. This is really unmissable and one that I highly, highly recommend. Number 1, Rebecca. After a whirlwind romance in Monte Carlo with handsome widower Maxim de Winter, a newly married young woman arrives at Manderley, her husband's imposing family estate on a windswept English coast. Naive and inexperienced, she begins to settle into the trappings of her new life, but finds herself battling the shadow of Maxim's first wife, the elegant and urbane Rebecca, whose haunting legacy is kept alive by Manderley's sinister housekeeper, Mrs. Danvers. Ben Wheatley getting a proper budget for once, tackling a movie that Hitchcock really knocked out the park, and yet Wheatley creates something that is really mesmeric. I loved it, from the production standards to the way that he uses his camera to the stars that he cast in this. Lily James is wonderful as the wide-eyed, innocent, not really fitting into this new world. And seeing that character twist and change throughout the movie is a real star-making turn, as you see how wonderful Lily James' performance really is. I think this is a movie that adds that kind of gothic horror into just a typical setting almost. You get this relationship that has little cracks that start to expand with pressure is put on it from other people within the house. You get a wonderful turn from Mrs. Danvers as that kind of bad person who kind of lurks around, has a little bit more power and is a little bit more sly and sleek in the way she carries about her behaviour. I think Rebecca was exceptionally compelling, really well done, some great performances, particularly Armie Hammer, who has a lot to do in this movie when you know the kind of twists and turns that are going to happen. Really great. It's a reason it's my number one. So there we had it. 10 movies for you to check out this month. I hope you found something there that you really like, something that inspires you to go and check it out. And if you feel up to, hit this with a like, thumbs up, or maybe even consider supporting me on my Patreon. And the link is in the description below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next month.